Bow, you shits!
The real war isn't between a few squabbling houses. It's between the living and the dead.
Winter is coming.
Why are all the gods such vicious cunts?
Chaos isn't a pit. Chaos is a ladder. I am the shield that guards the realms of men.
You know nothing, Jon Snow.
I drink and I know things.
You're the worst shit in the Seven Kingdoms!
Death is the enemy. The first enemy and the last.
Dracarys.
I am the god of jits and wine.
Welcome back. My name is Kit.
I'm Andy.
And I'm Steve.
And this is Streaming Things, streaming Game of Thrones.
Ooh, I love it. I love the feeling of it, guys.
It has finally happened after years of threatening.
I'm tingling. You know?
I could see you over there. You're
I'm
like
being
vibrating.
brought back to 2011. Osama bin Laden just got killed. You know what I'm saying?
It was the best of times.
It was the worst of times. We had to bring co-founder Andy back to the pod. This episode is season 1, episode 1. Winter is coming, which is embarrassing for Winter. And we're going to be covering the rest of the show only on the Patreon. So you got to become a member at patreon.com/streamingthings to hear the rest of our Game of Thrones coverage. If it does well, we'll cover season 2 and then season 3, so on and so forth. If you're familiar with the way that we do things, you know what's going to happen. But if you're new here, we're going to talk about our overall thoughts, our history with Game of Thrones in general, and what we thought of rewatching episode 1. Then we'll do a scene-by-scene, play-by-play recap of the episode, and then cap it all off with a segment we call Valyrian Steel, our top 3 favorite moments of the episode. Go through some dragon eggs, some Easter eggs that we might have missed in our main coverage on this episode, and then cap it all off with the Mummer's Dragon, our favorite performance of the episode. Give the award, the streamer, the streamy thingy, to the actor of our choice. And before we go, though, guys, before we start, I want to start all of this coverage by taking an oath. And I want to know, will you guys bow your heads and listen to me and take this oath with me?
Am I beholden to this oath until my dying day?
You are.
Oh, then sure.
Will I father any sons?
Well, you'll find out.
Okay.
These are the type of oaths I like doing once I don't know what I'm getting into until I say them out loud.
Mystery oaths. That's right.
So do we bow our heads?
You guys bow your heads.
Okay.
I'll have to read it. I didn't memorize it.
Okay. This is shaping up to be great.
Night gathers, and now my watch begins. It shall not end until my death, or the subscribers leave the Patreon. I shall take no wife, hold no lands, father no children. I shall wear no crowns and win no glory. I shall live and die at my pod. I am the sword in the darkness. I am the watcher on the walls. I am the fire that burns against the cold, the light that brings the dawn, the horn that wakes the sleepers, the shield that guards the realms of men. I pledge my life in honor to the Night's Pod for this night and all nights to come.
Huzzah.
Amen.
Yeah, amen. How do you end that?
I have been known as the horn that wakes the sleepers my whole life.
This is true. Whenever I'm sleeping, the horn comes in.
That's my farts in the middle.
Yeah, I was just about to say that.
So I'm very excited for this coverage. I've been threatening to do this on Streaming Things for years. We did cover season 8 many years ago, whenever that was, as a trio. We were overall more positive on it at that time than most people, but Andy and I were talking about it. And I think we were just a little delulu, just trying. Like, we love the show so much. It's one of those things where you're like, okay. Okay.
I still love season 8, like up through the long night. I still think it's like fucking amazing. It's the 3 after that, after the long night, where I'm like, oh yeah, well,
yeah. I know what you mean.
I don't disagree with where the story goes. I just think it's rushed.
It's like you and Phil watching a Star War. You know, you're okay.
Attack of the Clones is great. I think it's really good.
Okay.
I think I love Jar Jar Binks.
Did you see the lightsaber whip?
Oh yeah,
an acolyte.
Yeah, that's a thing that's always existed, just not in the movies.
Everybody knows the whips.
Yeah.
Is there any nays?
Any what?
Nays.
Nays.
Yeah, because if you watch them whip afterward, you have to watch them nene.
Yeah, they're from the planet Neneme.
Stu John.
Stu John, oh my God. I was there for that. I was there in person when that happened.
When they like announced that?
Yeah.
Or revealed it?
Yeah.
Oh, that's the worst.
Yeah, Jon Stewart was interviewing George Lucas at a celebration and was like, what planet is Obi-Wan Kenobi from? And George Lucas looked at Jon Stewart and said, the planet Stu John. And now it's canon.
That's amazing. That's how much effort he puts into world building, baby.
Pretty much, yeah.
Speaking of good world building, phenomenal world building in A Song of Ice and Fire, the books on which Game of Thrones, the show, is based. The first of which is titled Game of Thrones, which is where the show name comes from. Andy, I remember burying the lead here or putting a little bit of the cart before the horse, but lifelong fan of Game of Thrones.
Oh, yeah.
Read the book since I was 12 years old. And we were in college together when our creative writing professor announced that they would be adapting this into a show on HBO. Do you remember that?
I do.
Professor's name was Andy as well.
Andy Miller, yeah.
I wasn't going to give him his whole government name.
What's his address?
He's retired.
What's his mother's maiden name?
We
what
were
street
both
did he grow up on?
like, oh, no shit. You know, I remember when it was announced that they would be making this a show. So anyway, the very important property to me. But Andy, what's your history with Game of Thrones? And what was it like revisiting season 1, episode 1? Winter is coming.
You introduced me to Game of Thrones once upon a time.
The books.
Yeah. The Song of Ice and Fire. I think the third one had just come out. And you were telling me about it. And so I think I might have borrowed your copy. I don't remember.
Storm of Swords.
Well, not of the third one. I would have borrowed the first one.
Yeah, it was a weird way to start.
Just jumping right in there. Obviously, the books are amazing. And, I think that we both thought when they announced that there was no way that it could work. At least I remember feeling that way. And I think most arrogant book readers were like, oh, there's no way. There's just too much going on. There's no way they could possibly cover it all.
We weren't completely wrong when things wrapped up.
Yeah. Who would have fucking thought that it would outpace so far?
Yeah.
And still don't have that book. And so, like, I've soured on the idea of the books over time as I've gotten older. I'm just sad, I shouldn't say soured. That's wrong. I've gotten sad about it. But I just love the world so much. And it was like kind of like this validation. Reading the books was like this validation of what fantasy could be, because we were nerds. So we were like reading the Drizzt Do'Urden books and playing with swords in the backyard, so when Game of Thrones got adapted and became like the biggest cultural phenomenon ever, like it felt really validating that like, oh my God, I love this thing. And now the world loves it too. And it felt like it was cool to be me, And so the fact that the show came out and was as incredible as it was for as long as it was, and was never bad, it just definitely depreciated over time. But first 5 seasons, unreal, so good. And like, I'm super happy to sit down and watch it again. I get chills all the time. I've restarted the series probably like 5 or 6 times, and I've worked my way through like the first season, so I'm intimately familiar with this season, and then less and less as time goes on, because it is a commitment, but I'm excited for this.
Steve, what about you? Have you ever read the books? What's your history, and what's it like watching it again?
So I actually have only read the first book and Fire and Blood. That's the Targaryen history book. I've only read those 2 books. So I didn't know anything about Game of Thrones for the longest time. The show came out. It was a huge hit. I wasn't even watching it when the first season came out, and it was after the first season I think it was probably like 6 episodes in before I even watched the first episode, because people were like, oh my gosh, you got to watch the show. It's so great. It's so bold. It's like Lord of the Rings, but like rated R. And like, that's how it was sold to me. And I was like, oh, I like Lord of the Rings. And it's not at all really like Lord of the Rings, except, there are swords and dragons. That's literally the only thing in common.
It's the same genre.
There's same genre. Yeah. You have to toss me. But real quick, I do want to ask and note, just for the listeners' sake, like when we review these, we're reviewing them. We're going to steer clear of future spoilers, right? We're only going to be talking about what's in this episode and try not to spoil the future episodes because we have seen the whole series at this point.
If by some miracle, I don't want to say that sounds patronizing a little bit or condescending, but you have never seen the show before, you can be safe. You know, we're only going to be talking about what happens in season 1, episode 1, and so on and so forth. So
yeah, because I do know there are a couple people in our Patreon Discord that have never seen the show, and they might be watching the show with us for the first time as we cover it here, or maybe they're not interested in watching the show but still want to know what it is by listening to our coverage here.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to throw that out there. Don't worry, we're going to not spoil things. But when I finally got down and started watching Game of Thrones, I was immediately hooked. I love Sean Bean, and so the fact that
the guy from National Treasure.
The guy from National Treasure, yeah. Tune in Friday for that joke. So like when people were like, "Oh, it stars Sean Bean," I'm like, "Oh hell yeah, I'm definitely in. I love that guy." So, and then I started watching it. Immediately fell in love with the show. I think Game of Thrones is a damn near perfect show up through season 6. Like I think season 6 has 2 of my favorite episodes of the show back to back, and then season 7 I think is still pretty good, but a little shortened. And then season 8 is like, you know, we already said kind of our piece on that. But this first season is an incredible way to set up this world, and I think they really do a great job of, you know, this world of Game of Thrones is so huge. It's so expansive. There's so many families, so many characters, so many different groups that you have to become, you know, educated on very quickly. And while I don't think you get the depth of the knowledge you need for everything, they do a great job of introducing and making it vaguely make sense in a way where, okay, here's this idea of Essos and what Essos is. If you have a basic understanding of what it is by the end of this episode, and as we continue with the show, we'll keep giving you information that it just expands your knowledge of it. I think they do a great job overall with the show, and that's one of the most impressive things that they were able to do with this series. And then the show has introduced me to so many actors that I cherish and love and adore that when I first saw this for the first time, I didn't know at all. Like I literally only knew Sean Bean when I turned on the first episode back in 2011, right? And so like that's just the power of Game of Thrones, and it's gory at times. It's the one criticism I do have, especially for the first couple seasons of Game of Thrones, is there is a little bit, I think, too much sexposition and too much reliance on like, oh, we got to get a boobie in there. Because sometimes it feels forced. Sometimes it feels like, okay, we don't need to see that. That's a little bit like, okay, I see what you're doing. You're trying to like, it's a product of its time because at this point in time, HBO is very much like, we got to get a boobie in there.
We can show boobs, so we're going to do it.
Maybe a dude butt. But that's it.
Nobody's into that though.
We ain't going to see a dick, and I want to see the dick. If you're going to show me a boobie, I want to see a dick.
There's a bunch of dicks in this show.
Yeah.
Well, not in this episode.
Oh.
Just saying.
I was looking.
I'm just going to say one of the dicks we see is like got pus and shit all over it. All right, so I want to see a beautiful dick, right? Let me see it.
Some Westworld. You know?
I remember the first run of this show, the criticism of the sex position was loud and proud. And I remember thinking kind of like, grow up, you know, like it's just sex, you know, and I know that George feels very strongly about sex being a normal part of the human experience, and to fully tell a story about humanity, it would include sex. And I agree with that. But however, you can tell that I've grown just the smallest amount because, not to steal your thunder, but because of watching this show again recently, it finally struck me watching this first episode. Not that it bothered me or anything, because I'm still very much a sex positive person, but I was like, it's a little much. You know what I mean? For the first time in my life, I've been like, slow down on the butts, guys. You know?
Well, I feel like Hot D, House of the Dragon, you know, still has sex and features it in the show, but it does it in a way that I think, you know, when they do it, it like makes sense with what the narrative is. Whereas this is like, oh, we're having dinner, get a titty in there. Boys gotta eat.
Sure.
You know?
Sure. Yeah, it's definitely very much a product of like this a vestige of the late 2000s prestige TV. Look what we can do. Look what I can do. Kind of thing. Yeah. So I agree with that. But I don't want to take any more of your thunder. More of your overall thoughts, if you have any.
I mean, that's pretty much it. I mean, this show can be very brutal at times, and I think it's, you know, I do appreciate where the show is willing to go. Real quick, one last thing I wanted to talk about the sex positive stuff. The Double D's. The creators of the show.
The creators of the show. Weird time to call them their nickname.
TV Weiss and
Dan Benioff.
Dan Benioff. They actually put in the scene where John, Rob, and Theon are shirtless, getting their
getting shaved for the dinner. Yeah,
because they had so much pushback of put a lot of boobs in there. Can we get something for people,
the ladies,
something for who like dudes? And they're like, ugh, fine. And apparently they hate that scene so much because they felt like they were forced to have dudes be presented that way. And I'm like, okay, guys, come on.
Interesting.
It's not the best scene ever, but still,
it's not. We should say, and it's more of a dragon egg, I guess, about the pilot being reshot too. We're going to go into that later.
Yeah.
I love this show. Everybody who knows me knows that I'm obsessed with it. I love House of the Dragon. I love this world. I read fantasy novels with my dad, and it was a thing. It was a ritual. We had a local library that was open on Sundays, only the downtown branch, and I would go every Sunday, and I would get 5 to 7 thick novels and read them all to return the following Sunday and get different ones. My dad was always reading, so I got that from him. I was a unathletic, nerdy kid who was poor, so free books from the library was a good way for me to spend all my time. My mom used to yell at me to go outside. That's why you always have headaches, because you're always reading. If you know what it takes for a mother to yell at a kid for reading too much, then you have an idea of how much I was reading. And my dad and I discovered George Martin's books somewhere around the year 2000. I was way too young to read them, but I didn't really have age limits on any of the media I was consuming in my house. So it was fine. We read them together. And I think all the way up through Storm of Swords was already out at that time. Mm-hmm. And so I read Feast for Crows and Dance with Dragons as they were released many years later. And so, yeah, huge fan of this show. Just by virtue of being so obsessed with it's my favorite book series of all time. And I've read almost every major fantasy saga that exists up to the mid 2000s. I'm not caught up on Brandon Sanderson and all this new stuff that's coming out.
Sure.
I did read Joe Abercrombie's, all of his books, and this is my favorite. I think it's the best. It's the most detailed world that's based so much on historical fiction, which is another genre that I loved, that it just feels lived in and real, but with magic, which is so fun. And like Steve said, I was introduced to all of these different actors. Obviously I didn't have any idea who Maisie Williams and Sophie Turner was because they didn't exist yet. But also I wasn't super familiar with Peter Dinklage's game. I think I had seen Death at a Funeral, but wasn't somebody on my radar. I had seen Hot Fuzz, but didn't really know much about Rory McKinnon. I knew Mark Addy as the guy from A Knight's Tale, So much
that
like
still
Steve
blows my mind when we covered A Knight's Tale years ago, and that's fucking Mark Addy. What?
Yeah, it was a wild time. So yeah, all these people were unknowns to me. I'm obsessed with this show.
Lena Headey, Nikolai Coster-Waldau,
their careers of
Emilia Clarke, Ian Glenn. Jeez, so many good people.
This launched the careers of
Kit
so
Harington.
many people.
Your namesake, Kit Harington?
Yeah, it's true, actually. The reason I chose the name Kit is finding out his real name was Chris. And my daughter's name is Arya because of this show, this world. So big fan. Cannot stress enough. I'm actually rereading the book as we rewatch the show so that I can pay closer attention to details. And I actually have a lot of faith that Winds of Winter is finally coming out soonish, and I wanted to reread the books anyway. Mm-hmm. We'll see. I agree with you.
What gives you that inkling? I'm just curious.
It's been
good
long
feeling.
There are some deep state conspiracy stuff about the nature of those novels and the fact that he's likely writing them simultaneously, which is what's taken so long.
Was this in a Q drop?
Some people theorize that he's waiting to have them released posthumously and he's just lying. I don't know why he would do that.
He doesn't want to hear the
He doesn't want to hear the bitching. Yeah. I don't know about that, but I just have a feeling, sometime soon we'll get that, and I want to have it fresh. Because I agree with you, Steve, that there's a lot to love in seasons 5 through 8, especially 6. Some really all-timer moments in that season specifically. But as a book lover, there is still plenty to hate about where things have gotten.
Sure, yeah.
Starting around season 5, they start to just not deal with major plot lines. There's hundreds of pages that deal with Dorne that are just yada yada in the show. There's huge major characters that start to just not exist in the show because they took turns that are bizarre in retrospect, especially knowing where things in the show end up. It's like, oh, they had to end up there because they didn't do X, Y, and Z. That was a bad choice. A lot of the lovers of the show have a frustration with how things ended because it's simply because Benioff and Weiss just didn't want to do it anymore. George Martin had condoned a full 10 seasons. Everybody was willing to watch a full 10 seasons, and everything would have been better had they done another 22 episodes. And yet they just chose not to because they wanted to go do their Star Wars. And then
that turned out well. Things
ended so badly with Game of Thrones and the fan base that they had their Star Wars taken away from them. So it's kind of funny.
Yeah.
They do have a hugely successful show on Netflix now called The Three Body Problem, which Steve and I watched and didn't like.
I fell asleep.
We both fell asleep.
We both fell asleep in the premiere of it. Yeah.
People love it. Yeah. And Steve and I had already watched 3 movies that day and traveled. So our opinion is not really fair to take into account. Yeah, it was 11 o'clock at night. We'd slept for 4 hours and already watched 3 movies that day. So,
and it's
but
a
I did fall
very
asleep.
methodical and slow sci-fi show. So
I just love picturing you guys both waking up on Steve's couch. Like, what time is it? What did we do last
we were
night?
in Austin, Texas.
Oh, no.
So we were in a theater.
Those dumb helmets on that they gave us.
We were asleep in a theater, nodding out. But it just got renewed for season 2. People really liked that show, but also based on a popular series of books. But anyway, that's my background coming into this. Excited as all hell. I hope this is successful on the Patreon so that we can continue covering seasons 2 through 8. Nothing would bring me more joy than to just be obsessed with this universe for a solid year publicly. I'm going to do that privately no matter what. Sure. But let's dive into season 1, episode 1. Winter is coming.
So are we.
It starts out with the prologue, the 3 Rangers of the Night's Watch trekking beyond the wall. It's interesting because, well, we'll get there in a little bit, but I don't think the characters are ever named, but Will is the character that ends up being executed here shortly by Eddard Stark. And then Garrett is the older ranger who ends up getting killed pretty summarily.
We have to go back to Castle Black.
That guy. Sir Waymar Royce is the name of the knight in charge.
That prick?
The guy that gets killed first. But what's fascinating is in the book, it's pretty much word for word. This whole episode is very close to the book. But they changed some things that I don't feel like they needed to. Like in the book, Will is the one that dies immediately in the forest. And Garrett is the one that gets away.
Interesting.
The older ranger. Which makes more sense because he has frostbitten ears missing and some of his fingers missing. And in the book, that's how you identify him as the same person because Bran is he's missing fingers. And that's how Eddard respects him because he's so old and grizzled. He's it's kind of weird that he deserted because he clearly is a tough guy who's been in the Watch for a long time.
That is a good point.
And Will, his character climbs a tree and hides and watches all of the carnage. And they didn't do that in the show. Maybe it would have been tough to show him climbing a tree or something. I don't know. But his background is that he's a poacher and he got arrested for stealing the king's deer, but he's able to move silently through the forest and he hikes ahead and sees all of the dead bodies by watching for 6 hours and notices that nobody moves. Whereas in the show, he goes right up to them and he sees dismembered body parts and stuff. Whereas in the book, he's I'm pretty sure they're dead. That I watched for a long time and nobody moved. They're also weeks away from the wall. In the show, it shows them leaving the wall and it looks like they're an acre away.
Yeah, I have that at my note. The editing of the scene really makes it, you have to assume that it takes weeks to get where they're going because they literally just all right, we're leaving, guys.
Yeah.
Oh, bodies. Huh.
We could have seen these from the wall.
We got to go back to the wall. No, that'll take at least 2 minutes.
Yeah. No fucking way. It'd be so embarrassing to return so quickly.
So the time traveling that Game of Thrones became infamous for in later seasons started right away.
Yeah.
Well, I like that. I'm trying to think of it from a showrunner's perspective. And I'm they want to show the wall, But really, they didn't need to. They could have just started with them trekking through the forest and better showed how far away they were. But like, I get it. You want to show them the giant wall and look fantastical.
Yeah, I don't think it's that big of an issue, but it is kind of funny when you kind of know more about the world and like where they would have to be in order for that to make sense. It's like, yeah, wow, it took weeks for them to get out here.
Yeah. So Sir Waymar Royce, and the Royce, I think, is one of the Easters, like
the Vale.
Of the Vale. And so he's just like a lesser son of a big house. That's why he's such a prick, is because he's been forced as the third son to take the black, as it's called, to join the Night's Watch. But he's really a kid. He's 18 years old in the book. And so Garrett is like 55 and he's been a Night's Watch member for 40 years. And so it really annoys him to take orders from this guy. But basically he forces the other two who are like, the wildlings are dead. We were told to track the wildlings. Let's get the fuck out. They can feel like the evil that's nearby. Like something's weird.
Dead bodies formed in a ritualistic symbol. Not a good at.
Yeah.
I don't want to investigate that more.
Let's roll out. But
we should do it. Me.
But yeah, Waymar ends up.
Waymar.
That's his name, man. Sir Waymar.
I'm Sir Waymar.
By the time he forces them to go look, and the bodies are gone now.
Oh.
And the others come out and kill the knight, kills Garrett, cuts his fucking head off, if I recall.
Yeah.
And then Will gets out of there. In the book, again, it's the knight that's killed. By the time Will climbs down from the tree hours later, they're still there and they just kill him. And he's like, dang it, I didn't wait long enough. And then we assume Garrett gets away because he's caught later. I just think it's interesting. Also, there's a really long sword fight between the other and Sir Waymar. And Sir Waymar actually kind of tries his best. And I remember, it's from Will's perspective. And he's like, Sir Waymar's doing decent for real,
For real, he's
Dude can throw down.
He died well, or whatever is what he says, right? Like none of that's in the show. Like they could have showed a sword fight, and they were just like, nah.
Yeah.
They wanted more of a horror aspect, I guess.
Yeah, and the scene in the show sort of brings up a couple different topics. When they go back to see the bodies, they're all gone. Will ends up. I forget what he's looking for. I think they sent him to go find the track, see if they got up and walked away. And he's like, they're all dead bodies. So he's kind of wandering away from the other two, and he sees the one little girl that was
nailed to a tree.
Yeah, she was nailed to a tree, and he sees her walking around, and she's got these icy blue eyes. Ooh, spooky.
I remember that from the trailers when the shows before it came out. The little girl with the icy eyes.
Yeah.
Like, oh my god.
And
they're
then,
doing it.
There seems to be like zombie bearded looking things that are kind of silhouetted. You don't get super great looks at them.
Something is afoot.
Something is afoot.
And that's how the book starts too. It's just like, this is the only inclination of any kind of magic until like the end of the first book. The entire first novel is almost a historical fiction. It's really neat how they do magic.
I don't like how this scene ends necessarily because, they cut, what's his name? Garrett's head off.
Garrett, yeah.
Garrett's head off, and they're looking at Will, and they throw the head at Will, and Will's like, oh, it's really scary.
How's he get away?
And then it just fades to black slowly, and then dun, 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 which, love that theme.
Yeah.
Gotta love the Ramin Djawadi.
Maybe the best TV show theme ever. Definitely one of the top 5 best, animations for a theme ever, or for a TV show ever. But I just don't like how it just kind of peters out. This first scene has so much like horror and build up and suspense, and then it just, and we're done. It's weird. It's just a weird kind of edit.
They should have just went dun, 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 dun. Think they could have done that?
Oh yeah,
got away with it.
Scared Eric.
Just an idea I had. Then it cuts straight to.
I didn't know what you were singing. You're like, they should have just gone. Da, 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 da.
His ear picked it up. He knows the John Williams when he hears it.
Oh yeah.
It cuts to Will being caught by the Northmen as a deserter. And all of the Starks are aged up. In the books, Bran is 7. And in the show, he's 10. And Arya's even younger. And then she's a little older in the show. John and Rob.
Rickon is a gleam in his father's eye.
Rickon's 3 and in the books. And John and Rob are 14. And I think they're more like 17 in the show is what it seems like. So
same with Daenerys, right?
Yes, 14. Daenerys is 13 in the books.
13.
So with what happens to a lot of these kids, you can see why the show mandated that they age them up.
Yeah.
And Eddard's like our age, I'm pretty sure.
Eddard is 36.
He's 28.
He's literally
wow.
our age.
That's great.
So it's kind of crazy. I actually got really. I actually burst into tears reading the first page of the book because I've read it 6 times, I think, but not in a long time.
Yeah.
So there's so much nostalgia and just the way that the words are, the sentences are constructed, just being in that world. But I've only seen this show. Listeners may be shocked at how much I love it. I've only seen it from episode 1 to the end of season 8 one time.
Really?
I've seen certain episodes multiple times that I love, but yeah, I've only like watched this show one time.
Wow.
I think same. Like I said, I started it a bunch of times.
So rewatching this, I was like, "Oh shit!" Like it's just it's
doing
kind of yeah. So Will is caught. Bran, John, and Rob. It cuts to them.
They're doing an archery.
They're practicing archery.
Doing an archery.
Arya is
Your father's watching, and your mother.
only. He's my father, but it's not my mother.
That's not my mother. Just want to make that clear.
Arya is sucking at sewing while Sansa is awesome at it. And then Arya outshoots Bran with the bow and arrow from like farther away, and he's very upset about that.
I'll dead you.
We see Sir Roderick. Ratings, man! She made the shot. Sir Roderick and Theon report a deserter has been caught. They bring Bran, or Eddard says we need to bring Bran, right? And winter is coming. We see the house words of House Stark.
Winter is coming.
Because the character of Catelyn Stark, Eddard's wife, is much different in the show. Is another thing I'm noticing.
Way different.
She's way tougher in the book. Because she does not protest to Bran being brought in the book. In fact, Bran's just there at the beheading in the beginning.
She's the one like reminding Eddard of like his duties and stuff.
Yes,
in the books.
When it comes to him being asked to be hand of the king.
That was one of my Easter eggs. But yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's fine. But yeah, totally.
Catelyn is very much like, you have to go do that. You know? And in the book, she's like, don't go, please. It's just
or in the show, she's like that. Yeah.
Do you think? I always thought this was fun because the Starks always are like, winter is coming. Like, oh, we got to get dinner this morning. Oh yeah, winter is coming.
Yeah.
Do you think the other houses say their house words all the time? Like, do you think like everyone are like, oh, we got to get dinner this evening, and one of the Royces are like, as high as honor.
No, I think the Starks are. They're one of the oldest houses.
I've got to go take a shit. Ours is the fury.
Fire and blood,
honed and ready. Fire and blood's good.
Chipotle.
Yeah. Probably not. I think the
hear me roar.
The Starks are mocked for being self-serious quite often, because of how they're bred. But yeah, they're also one of the oldest and noblest of houses, Steve.
Yes.
All the way back to the Kings of Winter. But yeah, so winter is coming. Eddard says, no, we got to learn Bran early about death and such, right? Also, what's really neat about Eddard Stark is he believes that the man who passes the sentence should swing the sword. So he cuts Will's head off himself. And Will does apologize. He knows that he's a deserter. He's just, tells him about the others.
He calls them, and this is a big difference in the show, he calls them White Walkers.
He does.
Yes.
They're just the others.
In the books.
The books.
He watched a lot of Lost.
He did. I was going to make that joke.
He knows about the others.
On the way back from beheading Will, the deserted watchman, because by the way, becoming a member of the Night's Watch is for life. You can sire no sons, hold no titles or lands, and if you leave, you are sentenced to death for deserting your post. So they come across a dead deer. And then shortly near, that's very important symbolically, it's a stag. And very near is a dead dire wolf, which is a giant wolf with a stag's antler in its neck. And
they killed each other.
Puppies.
Puppies.
All of the kids are very excited. And just like in the book, John protests the puppies being murdered. They were meant to have them. You have 5 true-born sons.
They're a sigil of your house, my lord.
He's so self-serious. Don't look away. Father will know.
Good job.
Your children were meant to have these.
I love how Theon's like, I'll kill him. Get me.
Yeah, I hate dogs.
More of a cat person myself.
I'm Alfie Allen. You saw what I did to John Wick. Give me that dog too.
We should have known all along.
We should have known. God damn it.
And I love how Ned Stark does the classic dad thing. He was like, fine, you're going to train it, you're going to feed it, you're going to walk it. I don't want to do anything with it, but I'm going to be very attached to them later.
I was going to say they should have cut to him on the couch with all the
He's playing with
puppies.
us. They're all like cuddling with Ned. He's like, I'm in love.
Yeah. That's how dads be doing it too.
Yep.
So he does cave and says that all the kids can have their own little puppy.
Oh, surprise puppy though.
Oh yeah, but John,
He lifts up Pippin. Hello. That one's yours, Snow.
I'm an ancestor of a dire wolf. A ferocious predator like me.
I'm an albino dog. Yeah, so John
Is that going to be Ghost's
in the book,
voice for the rest of the coverage?
yes. In the book, it's actually really endearing because it's from Bran's perspective, that chapter. And he's never loved John more than in that moment because John sacrificed his own dignity in order to grant the other children their puppies, by leaving himself out of the count of Eddard's sons is how he made it make sense that there were 5 puppies there because he didn't see Ghost yet because he's a bastard. So it was a very much sacrificial thing that he did by saying that.
Yeah. All the other kids are children of Ned
Trueborn.
and Catelyn Stark.
Correct.
And John is the son of Ned.
And
but
Mystery
someone
Woman.
else, yes.
And so after everyone else leaves, he does find Ghost, the runt of the litter, and so he gets his own wolf there.
That one, Joel Snow.
Where's your dad, Theon?
fucking-
I wish
yeah.
John was a bigger dick.
Yeah, they can turn that around on Theon so easily. I don't know why he
Where's your
gets pushed
dad?
around by Theon.
Oh,
He doesn't love me.
that's what I thought. So then we cut briefly to King's Landing. I've only seen this. I haven't seen this in so long. Why do they have the body of Jon Arryn just displayed in the throne room in this scene?
With his guts and
Because you can
and
see
a pot.
you can see the sword chair in the background.
Yeah.
And he's got those little eye rocks on his face. His little googly eyes they gave
Who
him.
painted the googly eyes on those rocks?
I just think it's silly that his dead body.
It's like he's still alive. Guys.
He's in there with the Silent Sisters in the throne room. Like, that's absurd. But sure, I get it. They want to have the iconography there. But it's Jaime and Cersei talking.
Look, they only had one set.
Yeah. They're twin brothers and sisters.
Just, it's King's Landing Shiva, right? Isn't that what it's called for Jewish people?
When you sit there. Yeah. But why would you put him in the throne room? Like, business still needs to be done.
Maybe they didn't. Somebody already booked the Sept of Baelor.
Exactly. It would be in the Sept of Baelor, if anything. And I get it. It's just they didn't build the world completely yet. They just wanted us to show the chair.
Yeah.
But it's silly.
They just
Knowing
had
everything
the
I
set
know about the
built.
world, it's silly. You know?
I thought it was. I made a note where they have him displayed like that with the rocks on his eyes, but then you could see like jars with his like guts in them, like ceremonial jars, as if it was like being mummified, sort of.
He's being worked on by the Silent Sisters as we watch.
Yeah. So they're just prepping him for the funeral and
In the throne room.
in the
That's
throne
what's
room.
silly
Yeah,
about it.
Okay, that's even more silly then. Yeah.
Yeah. So Jaime and Cersei are upstairs on the balcony talking. What if he told someone, right? And she says, "You should be a hand of the king." No. I love this line. Their days are too long and their lives are too short.
Yeah.
I don't want to work that hard and I want to die young.
Yep.
I want to do cool shit.
I love Jaime Lannister.
Oh, Nikolai Coster-Waldau. Amazing.
Oh, I was on the Jaime Lannister bandwagon this episode.
Before he got
When I
redeemed?
first started watching this. I used to tell people he was my favorite character of the show, circa season 1, and people would be like, what the fuck is wrong with you?
He fucks his sister and kills people.
So he fucks
Grow
his
up.
sister. He's really nice to Tyrion, though. Isn't that cool? And like,
I love when people say, like when there's a criticism about a character's behavior and someone says, it was a different time. And it's like, it's not real at all.
yeah.
What are you talking about?
What do you mean it was a different time? These characters were made up.
It was a different time, Game of Thrones, It's not a historical show. But yeah, it's talking to, they've clearly done something. We don't know what yet, but they're worried. And he's trying to allay Cersei's fears. But that's all we see in this scene. We cut back to Winterfell in the Godswood. Ned is in there cleaning his sword, Ice, his great sword that he used to cut off Will's head.
It's got blood on it.
The Godswood is supposed to be in Winterfell, by the way, like it's in the middle.
Yeah.
And it is a few acres, but in this scene, it makes it look like they're out in the forest somewhere, which they are, but this wood happens to be in the castle.
Yeah, it does feel very not in the castle.
It is a ceremonial place. Ned worships the old gods, but most people nowadays worship the Seven, not the superhero team from The Boys, the Seven Gods, the Pantheon. is the main religion.
Homelander, we pray for peace, prosperity.
Yes.
Yeah, Catelyn shows up and she's like, I've been here so long and I still feel like an outsider coming to this place because she worships the Seven.
Yes.
And I do love this scene because it really sort of shows the bond between the two. Because in a lot of these medieval-esque type shows, the husband and wife, you can tell, like, it's just a
they're arranged marriages.
Yeah, arranged. But you really get a sense that they truly love each other because he's like, what do you mean? You have you have a bunch of northern children. You belong here. And all your gods have all those silly rules. It's like, it's adorable the way they kind of go back and forth.
They don't show the weirwood, the hearts tree, very much, but they're stark white with blood red leaves, and they've got little faces carved on them. And she fucking hates that tree. It creeps her out. It's really what she's trying to say. But she has bad news for him. He's in there cleaning his sword, meditating after a good murder. And she says, I'm sorry. John Aaron is dead. John Aaron is an old friend of his, a mentor that we'll talk about in the Dragon Egg section, but he's dead. And she also informs him that she got a raven. The king rides for Winterfell. So
yep, they're coming.
The king and all of his retinue is on his way.
There's only one thing he's after. He's riding all the way up here.
These cheeks. He misses them.
Mm-hmm.
God.
That northern weed.
God, you could bounce a quarter off that ass.
Robert Baratheon, played by Sean Connery.
Kiki.
You can say no, Ned. That's her line.
Bow your shits.
But that's not what she said in the book.
He just starts crying.
As Andy and I discussed, she's actually quite adamant of reminding him about his duties in the book. But they prep for the arrival of the Southerners. And again, just for non-book readers or new people new to the show, King's Landing, where the crown is, it's like a month's journey.
Yeah.
To come up to Winterfell.
Get a month on the King's Road to get to Winterfell, which is in the high north of the kingdom.
It's far. All of the north is bigger than the rest of the Seven Kingdoms combined. It's a very big place. So they're on their way. They have time to prepare. So they got to go down to the coffers and pull out some money and make sure there's plenty of food for all these motherfuckers that are coming up to party in the north.
They need a bunch of candles.
Right before the winter, too, man. Going through their stores.
I know. Dick move.
This is where we get the boys
It's
shaving, prepping, getting a haircut for the arrival of the Southerners.
And they're all shredded and sexy, just shirtless men.
We're normal men.
Innocent men, except for Theon over there.
He's a piece of shit. We cut to Bran climbing.
Me, Theon. I'm here imagining myself as a 12-year-old prick. Weird move, Theon. Why are you here?
Bran
He just takes his shirt off and hangs.
Yeah, exactly.
He's not even getting a haircut.
Why exactly are you here, Theon?
You didn't even get a haircut.
The boys of the children of the people who own this castle are getting their haircut. Why are you here?
Well,
hang out.
Eddard treated Theon kindly, like one of his own sons.
That's true. That is true.
Theon's just a dick. Bran's climbing all over the ramparts of the castle, which is something he does. We find out very quickly that Catelyn very much wants him to not do because it's dangerous. But I like how they. I think it's just because this is not in the book. It's just implied that he climbs at this point. But in the show, they decided to show that and also show that the king's arriving. So it's just like a really cool. I like this scene. I think it was.
Yeah, it's a good way to show two things at once.
Yeah, well written, well edited. Everything's cool about it.
Parkour.
And then
we know that a lot of time has passed since the beginning of the episode because the puppies are bigger now. And Catelyn,
gods, they grow quick.
Catelyn even calls it out. Gods, they grow quick. It's been 3 hours.
Crazy. And also the first thing that Robert says when he gets down off his horse, and they bring this like little box for him to stand on so he can get off the horse easy. And he walks up to Ned, who looks great, and goes, "You've got fat."
And then Ned just kind of looks down at Bobby B, who is fat.
Yeah.
And then they just laugh.
Come here, cat. Keeping your husband's cheeks all to yourself, I hear. And Robert wants to see the crypts immediately. And Cersei, his wife, the queen, does not like this. We've been traveling for a month. The dead can wait. He just fucking ignores her.
The dead speak.
We also... Somehow Palpatine returned. I love that Arya is such a little shit. She shows up wearing like the knights or the men-at-arms helmet.
Yeah.
And where's the imp? Like she's just really rude and uncouth, and I love her so much.
I know what they're doing specifically because this is something they added in after the fact, but they have Arya being the one like, that's the queen. where's the imp? That's the hound.
Yeah,
like
it
she's
sounds
calling,
like ADR. And
It
you just hear,
is.
It is. And the Sansa's going, would you shut up?
Yeah. You just got to get a little, keep the audience in on who's who.
Mm-hmm.
Also, in retrospect, rewatching it, I thought Clegane's hound helmet was a little silly.
silly because it's like bobbling around.
Yeah.
It looks really cheap.
Yeah, they did their best. But in the crypts, immediately Robert gives him the job offer. Essentially, he wants to promote him to Hand of the King, and Eddard does not want to do this because that involves moving. It's a relocation job. Salary's great, but it works hard, and he's got to relocate.
You to run my kingdom while I drink fucking whore my way into an early grave.
Right?
Bobby B, he's kind of a bastard, but I kind of love him.
Oh, you gotta love him.
I love him so much. I love Bob. God, he was strong back then.
He likes to party.
He does.
You can't fault a man for liking to party. Yeah.
He seems like a king that wouldn't be great, but you could have a beer with him.
Many beers, in fact.
He'd drink under the table.
The king eats and the hand shits.
Yep.
That's what they say. But he's there mourning Lyanna, which is Eddard's sister. She died when they were young. We'll get there in a second. But in the middle of this, we have to cut to Jaime looking for Tyrion, his little brother. And he arrives outside a whorehouse.
So this is something that happens a couple times in this episode.
Yeah, we'll walk up to a house.
Characters are walking around a hallway, maybe walking up to a house, and you hear
Yes!
just pleasure sounds. And this is the first of several that happen. And in this situation, it's
That went on for a long time.
it goes on really long.
Yeah,
Andy.
Andy.
I had to fade it out.
Have you seen When Harry Met Sally? It's a long scene.
It's a long scene. But yeah, this is one of the first of many. And, Jamie's like, I hear some pleasure noises. But we cut to what's going on inside. And what's going on inside?
It's Tyrion, I believe, getting, I think he's busting a nut.
A beach?
He's getting a beach. And I love the line, our sister has strange tastes. It's a family trait.
Yeah. It's really good.
It's a good
foreshadowing.
scene. Peter Dinklage is great. He's already hard again after he's a quick recovery time.
Oh, yeah. 30 seconds tops.
Yeah, the imp.
We're introduced to Tyrion and Roz, who is a pretty important, figure in Winterfell, at least. Like, she's like the
Head whore.
The head whore. But she's very intelligent because she's able to discern that, because he's trying to be coy, I heard Jaime Lannister's the smart brother, or the pretty brother, but the other one's very smart. And she's like, I hear he's a
lecherous little devil.
Drunken little devil, prone to all manner of perversions. And he's like, it's me, girl.
I eat ass. She guesses that he's Tyrion Lannister, yes.
Yeah.
Jaime Lannister shows up. Roz, by the way, is a character who's not in the book. It's a show invention. But Jaime says, we're short on time. I need you at the feast, bud. I don't want to be with all these fucking...
Don't leave me alone with these people.
These peasant northerners for too long. So he bought him 3 extra whores.
I know we're short on time.
By the way, prostitutes,
he sends the girls in.
Sex workers, they're called whores in the universe of the show.
Yeah,
It's not something I just call people.
Yeah.
So just to be clear, if I say that from time to time, it's world building.
Building the world
I
over
just
here,
felt
man.
weird being like, and then the other whores walk in.
But we get a joke that I feel like you would get from the late 80s, early 90s, where it's like, close the door.
You're like, at this point, why does he care?
Yeah.
Oh, you want your privacy?
The whole town has come into Pleasure Tyrion.
Yeah.
They do this a lot in the show. Well, really in TV in general, but especially in the show where you kind of bookend a scene. So it opens with do I have to explain to you the meaning of a closed door in a whorehouse, brother? And then ends with close the door.
And we cut back to Robert in the crypts. This is when we get the Lyanna speech, which is lengthy in the book. And then he ends with Eddard saying the Targaryens are gone, right? Because Robert's still very mad about it. Not all of them. And then this is how we get the introduction of Daenerys.
I do love Mark Addy's performance because he's this big, boisterous guy. And then when he's talking about Lyanna, and he's like, you should have buried her on a hill somewhere with the sun and the clouds above her. And he just,
Poetic.
He misses her.
He loved her.
Yeah.
He very much did.
He hates Cersei so much.
But don't forget is what Eddard says. I was with my sister when she died. She wanted to come home. This is where all the Starks are buried in this crypt. But yes, all the Targaryens are gone. Not all of them.
Not all of them.
And we cut to Pentos. Which is a city in Essos outside of Westeros.
Whole other continent.
Dany's there, Daenerys Targaryen, with her brother Viserys Targaryen. In his mind, the rightful king of the Seven Kingdoms. He brings her the fabric gift from Illyrio Mopatis, the magistrate of the local area.
They've been hosting them, yeah.
Yeah, they've been living on his boon. And he's a weird. We already.
Andy, would you like to live upon my boon?
No.
They should put the.
My.
Do they have those requests on Zillow anymore? Like, looking for a boon to live upon?
Well, with inflation,
Filter by boons, please.
The real estate market's whack right now. Boons are expensive. This episode of Streaming Things is sponsored by BetterHelp.
BetterHelp.
You know, Steve, there's something I need to get off my chest.
What's that, fella?
It's been weighing on me. You know that I resigned at the day job recently, right? And I've been a little scared. There's a family to worry about. There's health insurance. There's capitalism.
Sounds like a stressful time.
But we all carry around different stressors, big and small. And it feels better when you bring something to the light and keep them bottled up. It can start to affect us negatively. And therapy is a safe space to get things off your chest and to figure out how to work through whatever's weighing you down. In my case, it's all of the stress, the misery, the fear. But I had to come over here and share that with you, and I felt better. You know, that's a real thing that happened.
Yeah.
Unloading all that on you and Erica and feeling better myself.
That sounds like my Friday night.
Sometimes you just need somebody to listen. So if you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. If you're not vibing, that's completely fine. So get it off your chest with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/streamingthings to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/streamingthings.
It's the month of May, a very special month that is very near and dear close to my heart. And it's that time of the month where we get to send a huge virtual hug and a round of applause to some truly stellar individuals. Our super patrons at the Try Before You Deny tier and above. You all make this show possible, and it's time you get a special shout out. So thank you very much to Stanton Valentino, Maddlestat, Susie Callahan, Anthony Corona, Sunshine, Huckleberry Cauliflower, Ashley Hazen, Mike from New Hampshire, Brett X, Emily Scarano, Lil Tickler, Svento7, Jay Scramo, Bluff Pum, AK Ashley Ray, Adam Busby, Wendy O'Laughlin, Jason Hawkins, Conrad, Kaylee Sampson, Rabbit Dog in a Barbie Car, Charlie Friday, Alexis Adler, Peaches, Emmy, Haley B, Joe Velez, John Collins, Amanda King, Trisha Bueller, Sun Loving Mortal, Suzanne Rode, Jen Robinson, Kalisha Reeves, Aaron Armstrong, Kevin Strother, Ashley Powers, Stephen V, Casey McCain, and Enza. A massive thank you to each of you and to all of our patrons at every level. Even if you're not at the shout out tier, your support means the world to us. We couldn't do it without you, and we hope you feel as much a part of the Streaming Things community as we do every day. And with that, how about we get back to the show?
Viserys, one of many inappropriate brothers in this story. You have a woman's body now.
Just strips her down.
Yeah, let me take a gander. Basically, this scene is all about how he is selling her to what he considers a savage, but Khal Drogo, one of the most powerful Dothraki warlords, who his Khalasar is like 30,000 screamers, is what they call them. They're a nomadic band of warriors. And this scene ends with Daenerys getting in the too hot bath. Which
It's too hot, milady.
It does happen in the book, but not quite this way. But yeah, it's an early foreshadowing. Well, I'll just say that, like it's very hot and that no human should be able to withstand the heat of that water. It's boiling, scalding hot, but she just gets right in it. And by the way,
doesn't look like it's not hot to her. She does.
Yeah, the show plays it like she's like. Yeah, the show plays it like a masochistic thing.
Yeah.
When in reality, she's just not uncomfortable. You know?
Right.
She's able to withstand it genetically.
Well, she's becoming the dragons right now. It's kind of like owie a little bit, but.
You don't want to wake the dragon.
Yeah.
Viserys says.
Her dragon's sleeping too.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's waking the dragon.
You don't want to. That's what
herself.
That's what he calls his abusive temper. It's so gross. You don't want to wake the dragon.
Yeah.
You sniveling little bitch.
Viserys is such an interesting character because
he thinks he's so tough, but he's just Draco Malfoy.
He's just Draco Malfoy. He thinks he's so tough. If you know his backstory, he's like a real like sad character. Like it is like kind of awful what happened to him, but he became a piece of shit growing up. It's It's a interesting character.
He's just got
but
that
he's gross.
Targaryen madness, man.
He was 8 years old when his family was overthrown by Robert Baratheon and his armies. And Daenerys was not born yet. So he fled with his mother to Dragonstone with one of the King's Guard. And the mother died birthing Daenerys on Dragonstone. And then they fled to the east with the knight. And the knight ended up dying in the house with the red door. And so they've been alone ever since.
What was the knight's name?
That was, I forget.
I wanted to say John Connington, but that doesn't feel right. Isn't that a different?
It is, yeah, that's a different knight.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so he died, and then they've been alone ever since, hopping from city to city, selling their royal jewels and crowns and stuff, and being hidden by people who are sympathetic.
The Beggar King.
Over the year, yeah, he became known as the Beggar King, and over the years, nobody believes he's ever going to get his throne back anymore, and he's just a joke. But the Khal is interested in Daenerys. So they introduce them to Khal Drogo and his crew. He does an appraisal of Dany. And how do we know he even liked her? Oh, we would know if he didn't like her.
Yeah. The Dothraki are not known for their punctuality. I kind of wish Illyrio Mopatis would be like in every episode, just sort of explaining deeper lore to people.
It'd be nice.
White Walkers are these creatures that
they just use sex for that later.
Yeah, but it's him. Just
it should be him.
It's him in the back. It's him just having sex. Like you may understand that the way the economy runs on King's Landing is through.
1 second.
I'm David Attenborough.
Yeah. Just fucking in planet Earth.
This is the most hateful creature on the entire planet.
Planet Earth is wild.
Hold on.
I'm there. Give me a moment.
I love Khal Drogo's guyliner.
Yes. By the way, Jason Momoa, we didn't even mention. This is the introduction to Planet Earth, if you will, of Jason Momoa. And it's kind of crazy to think about.
He had like bits in like sitcoms or something, I think, prior to this.
I'd never seen him before.
Yeah, I don't know. He was a nobody.
He's probably got the biggest career of anybody after this, you know, because Emilia Clarke, I mean, she had brain surgery, but she's been in a bunch of bad movies. Sophie Turner had multiple children with one of the Jonases, so she's coming back to movies, but she purposefully took a break. Maisie's been doing some good stuff, mostly in TV, but it's not huge.
Kit did all right for himself, for sure.
Kind of. He was in Pompeii, and I don't agree. I don't think Richard Madden's done very well.
Both of them were in the MCU with that one movie.
Yeah, but the wrong one.
Yeah. Kind of the turning point.
Yeah. But yeah.
I like that movie.
And Daenerys says, I don't want to be his queen. I want to go home. And that sets Viserys' anger off because I want to go home too, sweet sister. She wants to go to the house with the red door.
Yeah.
He wants to go to the Seven Kingdoms and be king. Right. And we get this diabolical line from him that I'll never forget. It's the same as in the book. I would let his whole tribe fuck you. All 40,000 men and their horses if it meant I could get my throne back.
Yeah. He sucks.
He misuses the word tribe. I just want to be a nerd there. It's a Khalasar. They wouldn't they wouldn't use the word tribe, but it gets the point across to the audience.
But he's also ignorant
asshole?
of their ways.
Yeah.
So
True.
So it makes sense that he would say that.
That's fair. Also, I want to point out that a lot of the things that are really fantastical are made to look more normal and medieval in the show. Even the way that Illyrio Mopatis looks. He's a huge man with a giant yellow forked beard in the book. And like bright yellow, he dyes it.
Yeah, there is a lot of like dyed hair that they leave out in the show.
And the armor in the show and the book too is always crazy looking, like the way the Hounds is. Different colors and stuff. They just don't do any of that in the show. Which is kind of sad. You know, it would look none. It would look fun, not none.
I'm okay with it. There are some character descriptions I know from the book where I think of that in the show and I'm like, I don't know if I would be able to take that character seriously.
Well, it's like just big yellow beard.
Well, Illyrio maybe, but I'm thinking more of
Dario.
Yeah,
Maharis.
yeah,
He's got a tri-colored beard.
Yeah.
That's true. But also like the Hound's face is like massively scarred and burnt. And in the show, he's like,
even Tyrion's
pretty handsome.
face is
Tyrion's supposed to be jacked up.
Doesn't have a nose and like a discolored eye and stuff.
I can't wait to the introduction of Tyrion soon because it's so different in the book, and I can't wait to talk about it because I didn't remember that. But yeah, he's like, I would let 40,000 people fuck you, and she's like, okay, weird.
Thanks, bro.
Glad it's just the one then. And then we cut to Sansa and Kat talking, and she's begging to be.
When will I be queen?
God.
When will I be married?
The only thing I ever wanted.
It's the only thing I've ever wanted.
To be the fucking queen.
She wants to go south, and she's begging Catelyn to convince Eddard to let them. So they all know that he's been offered this job. So Sansa begs Kat, and then it cuts to everyone at the feast. And but outside, Benjen finds Jon Snow practicing his swordplay angrily.
Uncle Benjen.
I love
Uncle
you.
Benjen, I love you. I want to join the Night's Watch with you, Uncle Benjen.
I'm ready for the wall.
Father will let me if you ask him.
I think you should get laid first before you ask that. I don't care. I think you will.
It's pretty good.
I love that that's his thing. I really think you will. I miss it.
Boy, do I. I just hang out with creeps in black all day long. I don't.
In the book, he is at the feast. He's just not allowed at the dais. You know what I mean? He's at a different table. But in this show, they're like, he's not even allowed in the room, which is, I don't like it because Eddard would never allow that. You know, he's always been cool to Jon. But yeah, so he's not even allowed in the party.
But they're really driving that wedge that Catelyn specifically doesn't care
She
much.
does in the book hate Jon.
Yeah.
A constant reminder of her husband's only failure.
I'm not fond of Jon.
Yeah, I know.
Send him away.
Yeah. And then Tyrion comes out of the shadows as soon as Benjen walks away. And what's funny is in the book, Tyrion is sitting up above the door on a ledge, drinking from a bottle of wine. And again, he's in the book, he's like an even more crazy looking dwarf. Like Peter Dinklage is an extremely handsome man, but Tyrion is not. And he's just up there like, and John's like,
Salacious Crumb up there.
Yes. And Jon says, let me get you a ladder. And he vaults into the air, flips, lands on his hands, and leaps back like a da-da-da. So I'm glad they didn't do that.
I'm so glad they changed that. Holy fucking shit. Jesus.
That's his introduction in the book.
God.
But he tells Jon, you're the bastard, right? And Jon's really offended by that. And he's like, oh, sorry, did I offend you? Never forget that you're a bastard. Wear it like armor and then nobody can ever use it to hurt you. And he's like, what do you know about being a fucking bastard? You're the Lannisters are the wealthiest family in the Seven Kingdoms. And all dwarves are bastards in their father's eyes.
And he becomes Irish randomly.
I love the way he delivers his lines. Like, did I offend you? Sorry.
Oh,
just so
Sorry.
Peter Dinklage is incredible.
He's the MVP of the show for a long time.
He always wants to see the wall. Mm-hmm. And it was my dad's favorite character in the books because he's a brilliant tactician, because he's a dwarf. He's used his wits his whole life. And the show does not do that justice necessarily, but we'll get into that if we get to later seasons. But he's a brilliant man. And that's the end of this scene. So we cut to Eddard, uncomfortable at the feast. He talks to...
Hey, you know that kid I killed?
Sure did. Loved him. He was cool.
It's bothering me. He was talking about White Walkers, but... direwolf south of the wall, which is we should have mentioned there's no direwolf south of the wall. Typically the wall is this massive 1,000-foot magical barrier and all of the fantastical
the
things.
Whole continent.
Yeah. It blocks them. It protects them from giants, all kinds of things that are supposedly north.
And the Night Watch is the ones who man the wall to make sure that doesn't happen.
Yeah, make sure none of those things get past and kill everybody south of the wall. That's the purpose of it. Yeah.
But over the years, people have sort of stopped believing in those sort of things.
Yeah.
And
Except for old Nan.
Except for old Nan. And so the Night's Watch is kind of lower in numbers because not many people go up there except for the people who are charged with serious crimes who are sent up there as punishment. So the Night Watch isn't what it once was.
No. And then we cut to Cersei talking to Catelyn. And I love, because you can see the king fondling serving girls in the background and Cersei's just watching it with hatred going... Lovely country. Trying to be polite to Catelyn. I just thought that whole exchange was funny.
I think that whole scene is amazing. It looks like a Renaissance painting. It was so well staged and lit and just I don't know, the costuming is just beautiful.
Yeah, it's very well done. Jaime interacts briefly with Eddard and he's very hostile and arrogant. I can't wait till you come south. I'm sure they'll host a tournament in your honor. We can fight each other.
The competition's gone stale.
And he's, I don't fight in tournaments. I don't want people to know what I can do when it comes to finally actually fighting them.
which is a badass line, but like Jaime is by far the best swordsman in the world. So like he would destroy Eddard. Like the show makes Eddard seem like, yeah, I'm a pretty bad motherfucker.
And he is.
Yeah.
He's
in his own right.
He's a seasoned soldier.
But
yeah,
Jaime Lannister is the best swordsman in the world. But I do love how Jaime Lannister's like, well said. Like he's like, game recognizes game, my dude.
Look at the dick on this man.
Holy shit.
Let me see it.
Big Dick Ned Stark.
We also see Arya flicking food at Sansa, and she's so upset. And then they have Robb take her to bed, and it's just a great scene. You get to see the personalities of all of these different characters so quickly. It's really well done. Like Arya's a little shit, you know. She doesn't care for pomp and circumstance, and certainly, and you can, you know, when you're in like high school and what other people think is like the most important thing in the world, and Sansa is the epitome of that. And Arya just does not give a fuck, and she's the paragon of that. So it's just it all plays out so well. But we cut to Eddard in bed with Kat. They're talking about how fat Robert is, and you know, having a good chuckle.
Fat man.
Yeah, listen, he's not going to go. But then Maester Lewin arrives with a message from.
You guys need a third.
Hey,
he arrives with a message from Lysa at the Eyrie, who's Catelyn's sister,
John Aaron's wife,
and was John Aaron's wife. Yep, and basically
this came from the Eyrie. She hasn't been there since her wedding.
Oh, what was she doing there? And they learn that she has fled the capital back to her, house seat, and says that John Arryn was murdered.
Murdered?
Oh my God!
Oh boys, it finally happened in Game of Thrones. We have a Who Has Done This?
Who has done this?
A classic Who Has Done This?
Murder, murder, murder.
We should call Benoit of House Blanc.
There's a whole.
I am vexed by this little imp coming into my home and taking my cigars.
A life-saving antidote.
Compels me though. Yeah, he's and Maester Lewin, or I think it's Catelyn who in the show who says your father and brother rode south once on a king's demand, but in the book it's Eddard who says that. I don't want to go.
Yeah.
When my father and brother went down there, they died and never came home. And it's Catelyn who's like, it is your duty.
They were killed by the Mad King, right?
Mad King Aerys.
The former Targaryen that Bobby B led the uprising against and usurped.
Viserys is daddy. And then we cut to
one of my Easter eggs too. That's cool. I mean, we all probably have.
We talked plenty about them. The Dothraki wedding is what we see next, and Dothraki weddings are wild.
They're awesome.
Yeah, that's all. We can all agree.
A Dothraki wedding without at least 3 deaths is considered a dull affair.
Not only that, but everybody's openly fucking.
Yeah.
They're openly fucking. They're dancing. They got music. They got barbecue. Like, this place fucking rocks.
Yeah.
I did write, like, 2 dudes are fighting over the... fighting over the chance to dry hump a woman because they both have their pants on, but they keep like pretending.
I don't think they're supposed to be dry humping.
Oh no, yeah.
I think he pulled his wiener through the hole, and like the zipper.
Oh, I know that's what they're going through, but I don't see no wiener through a hole.
That's true.
It's fucking Burning Man with dragon eggs. It's fucking awesome.
Yeah, yeah. More of a Coachella vibe.
Yeah.
I think I would be standing in the corner with my red Solo cup, like this is wild
for sure.
I'm gonna turn in early.
Yeah, I don't think it's just my scene. They're all.
Please don't fight to fuck me, please.
You're just over by the buffet picking.
Steve would give it to both of them to stop the fight, just one at a time.
Guys, fine. You can fuck the sad boy.
One at a time. They're all presenting gifts to Daenerys, the Cal's prospective wife. And
I love the one dude who's like, my gift to you, Khal Drogo, is like snack, and then, but he's like kind of he's not confident in it. He's kind of like okay.
Yeah, I mean it's all I could find on short notice.
I picked these up on the street when I showed up.
I tried to check the registry and I couldn't log in. Viserys is eager and impatient. He wants to, when
do I get my war?
When are we going to invade the 7 kingdoms? Like, well, they'll do it when they're good and ready. When the omens present themselves.
I don't know, my lord. Maybe after the wedding.
Yeah. Just hold your horses.
Just a
get
thought.
it? Horses. And then a fight breaks out amongst the fucking. By the way, Dothraki, it's not talked about here. It's maybe a dragon egg. They only do doggy style. They mount women like horses do. That's a thing in Dothraki. They only do doggy style. So that's all you see during the wedding. Just a fun fact.
They're all horse boys and horse girls.
That's
these
right.
Dothraki. They're equestrians to the max.
They
They love BoJack Horseman.
Good word.
We get introduced to Ser Jorah Mormont, who's a knight of the Seven Kingdoms who's been banished.
J Daddy.
And his backstory is pretty cool.
I love Jorah.
He gives her books of the Seven Kingdoms, and she's pretty intrigued about that, though, because she's curious about her homeland.
Songs and history of the Seven Kingdoms.
Wikipedia.
Westeros for dummies.
This is The Catcher and the Rye.
Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban.
It's the third one. Sorry. And then Illyrio gifts her 3 dragon eggs, which are so old they've turned to stone, but they're still beautiful. And they're worth a fortune, by the way.
Yeah.
These are the eggs of dragons. They come from the Shadowlands of Ashai. I'm going to get back to the fucking.
Dude, and they're supposed to be so expensive.
Yes.
Like, he's fucking Elon Musk, you know?
He is. He is.
Yeah.
Then we get the Cowl's gift to Daenerys, which is her silver mare, a beautiful horse. She's actually pretty enamored with the gift. And then they take off to go consummate the wedding, and her brother says, make him happy.
Make him happy.
And it's, the shot is wide, but he's like pinching her leg.
Yeah.
If you look real close, I thought that was a nice touch.
Yep.
I mean, it was a bad touch, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And when they become alone for the sex, this is one of the worst parts of the show, because
When they
it's
become alone for the sex.
It's not like this in the book at all. But she cries, and it looks really rapey,
Yeah.
and awful. And it's not great in the book because of the age and stuff. But I'm just saying, there's a element of Khal Drogo's kind of kindness a little bit, and that's just completely taken out of the show for no reason.
Yeah.
If you age her up, absolutely, that's wonderful. But then why'd you turn it into this? You know? So for anybody that's watching the show for the first time, like, what the fuck? It's not even supposed to be like this. So just get past it.
You didn't think they tried to show his gentleness in the show?
Not anywhere near enough, because he just keeps going, no.
Yeah.
No.
He's actively just disrobing
And
her
she's
as he
just
cries.
yeah, she's just like,
He does wipe away her tear at one point, but it's like,
it doesn't look like a tenderness. It looks like a
knock that off.
this is happening. No. It's awful.
Yeah.
I thought that they at least did it. I mean, I don't know how.
You're
to
looking
do
at it from the
better.
lens of you've read the book too, though.
Right,
you know?
right. True, yeah. But like, I was paying attention. Like, he was like being gentle, I guess. Like in the show, they at least gave it that much.
I guess by Dothraki standards, yes.
Sure.
But also it's still kind of like,
Oh yeah, I mean, it's a gross
Ooh,
scene
yeah.
for sure.
Yeah, I just think it could have been done a lot better, because it's supposed to be. We'll get there. I don't want to spoil anything, but yeah, I've heard some criticisms from people who've only seen the show and would kind of like. And again, I haven't seen this episode in so long, and I was like, really? And then rewatching, I was like, oh, I could see how not reading the book and watching this, you'd be like, the fuck? Yeah. Yeah. So then it cuts to Tyrion and the Hound briefly yapping. And everybody's.
I see what you did there.
Everybody's heading out for a hunt. You know, the Eddard and the King are going to go hunt boar or something. And are you still good with a spear? I'm still better than you. You know, they're bros. It's fun.
Must be
With
the
the hound,
misses.
the one of the best lines. The Hound's like, never took you for a hunter. He's like, the best in the land. My spear never misses.
Talking about his dick.
It's not hunting when you pay for it.
Yeah, they have a good banter. Bran watches them leave and then proceeds to climb, which he told his mother he promised he would not do, but she knew he would.
Yeah.
He always look
Oh,
around
yeah.
when you lie, you little fucker.
Oh no, here I go climbing again.
And have you guys ever been rock climbing, like real rock climbing? Very difficult.
Yeah,
Real
very
rock?
difficult.
No.
Definitely wouldn't let my 10-year-old do that at all.
Been like climb time or whatever it's called.
Climb time.
Climb time.
It's a fun place. And then he climbs all the way up one of the towers and sees Sir Jaime, Knight of the Kingsguard, banging his sister, the Queen.
Gasp.
And we get another one of those moments Steve was talking about as he's climbing up.
Yeah,
One of those.
Yes!
Yeah. Just climbing.
I don't hear this normally this high up in the castle.
So he's intrigued. And then Cersei is horrified. What are they going to do? Because they would both be beheaded if this were to become known. Her
The
children.
queen cheating on her husband, the king, with her own brother.
Yeah.
Taboo.
Yeah.
Taboo.
It's very taboo. And so there's this historical moment where Jaime Lannister pushes the boy out the window.
The things I do for love.
The
and just
things I do
no
for love.
scopes Bran out the window. Like, he's not even looking at him. He just shoves him out the window.
I love the way that he delivers the line when he's like, "How old are you?" And he's like, 10. He's like, 10.
Yeah, yeah. He's like, because he already knows he's going to kill him.
Yeah.
I also like the touch where he looks to see if it's long enough to kill him, or far enough to kill him. He like looks down, like,
And there's another nice touch about this. Is it was like, are you mad? Like, he likes this kid.
He's genuinely impressed
He's
that he
like,
climbed.
This is fucking rad.
Yeah.
Like, how'd you get up here?
He's fucking Spider-Man here.
I gotta kill him.
Yep. It's very well played. And that's the end of the first episode, the pilot. Everybody's in. Everybody's invested at this point. This is 2011. Oh, my goodness. Obama's in for his first term.
Hope.
Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2 comes out later this summer.
Wow.
You know?
Oh, yeah. Breaking Dawn Part 2 just came out, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Everything. The world is aflame with good things.
What a great time. What a time to be alive.
But now it's time for our Valyrian Steels, our top 3 favorite moments from this episode. Andy, what's your number 3?
Let's see. Let me pull out my notes. Sorry, I'm switching between devices. My number 3 is the moment when Jon and Tyrion meet. I thought that the lines were delivered beautifully. I thought it was cleverly written. It was short. There was no
vaulting,
no handstands. You know, it was very sad. But
so that would have taken it to number 1 if they had those.
But honestly, the reason I have this so high is because this, and then I think like one more episode, like that's all we get between Jon and Tyrion for the next like decade almost. You know, it like they don't have scenes together again for a very long time. And it's like the 2 favorite characters, my 2 favorite characters. And so getting to see them interact and banter, even though they don't like each other very much, I thought it was great.
Wonderful. Steve.
My number 3 is just the execution scene on the hill when Eddard pulls out ice and you get to see that huge broadsword. And it's such an iconic look of him just sitting there being all grim about to behead this guy. He says that I sentence you to die. The man who swings this passes the sentence should swing the sword. It's so indicative of who these characters are. And also it's shot very beautifully. Like there's a lot of like headroom with like that wide shot. You get to really see the sky and it just looks foggy. I just really like the vibe of that. And even though Eddard's like, you know, executing a dude who just tried to escape White Walkers, it's still like you understand like everything about what you need to know about Eddard Stark. He's like all about duty, even when he's not necessarily like thrilled about it. And yeah.
Dude, the set design's so good. Like when they show you Winterfell for the first time and it's like off in the distance and real foggy and you can only kind of see the castle. Like,
you can see a little bit of the red weirwood tree.
Yeah, it's so good.
Kate, what's your number 3?
My number 3 is the Dothraki wedding. It's just so outlandish and crazy, and it's from the perspective of Daenerys, who's just trying to take it all in. And you can see her like look, even at the barbecue, it's like there's flies all over it. It looks crazy. She would never eat that. Like this is so like,
are those bull testicles?
What the fuck?
Rocky Mountain oysters here.
It's like Liver King's party, you know, his birthday party basically, and it's just so weird and fun to watch. The guy gets disemboweled for no fucking reason. They just like to party. So yeah, that's my number 3. Andy, you're number 2.
That is my number 2.
Oh, we flip flopped.
Yeah, it's just, you know, it's Burning Man in Essos. You know, there's barbecue and there's titties flopping around,
Diplo's DJing,
people are fighting. Nice. It's just awesome. And then it also introduced Jorah, who becomes a fan favorite. It, like you said, it's from Daenerys' perspective, so it's like watching these like crazy people be crazy, and there's foreshadowing with Viserys and the conversation that he has with Illyrio during the wedding, and yeah, it was just really cool.
Lots going on.
Steve, you're number 2?
My number 2 is the introduction of Bobby B. God, he was strong back then. I think Mark Addy is so good in that role, and he's just such a fun, charismatic character who is deeply flawed, but like out of all of the flawed characters on the show, he's a saint compared to some of them, you know? But he's so fun, just the way like he and Ned like joke, and he's just like, show me your muscles and all that stuff. And I just really like that character, and I had a good time seeing him back on my screen after, you know, gosh, I can't remember the last time I watched this season of Game of Thrones. So it was good to see him back again. I love him.
Yeah. My number 2 is the scene between Tyrion and Jon. Your number 3, Andy. I think it's, 2 fan favorite characters, but also just, it's a really heartwarming Because even though Tyrion's a wealthy lord and Jon feels like a lowly bastard, who's also wealthy because he's Eddard's son, but they identify with being outcasts in different ways.
He's like Drake's secret child.
Yeah.
Like he'll be fine.
Yeah. And he tries to help Jon in his own sarcastic ways, like legitimately trying to give him advice to help him.
Wear his armor and stuff.
Yeah. So it's a great scene. But Andy, what's your number one?
My number one is Ned and Kat getting the letter from Liza and Mace Lewin coming in, and it kind of like sets off the whodunit. Like,
who has done this?
This is sort
Classic.
of the plot of the show. Ned needs to go to King's Landing and find out what happened to his stepfather.
Who has done this?
And I thought that was framed really cool. They did like a Eddard in the foreground, and then Lewin and Kat in the background, kind of like the angel and devil on the shoulders, where she's like, "Oh, you shouldn't do it," and he's like, "You, it's your duty to, find who but you could.
You are the only one the
protect
king trusts."
I thought it was just framed really great, and but keeping the focus on Ned, just kind of like taking it all in, like, oh
resigned
my God,
to his fate.
Yeah. Great scene.
Steve.
My number one has appeared on all of your lists, and that is the "all doors are bastards in their father's eyes" scene. I love this scene because, you got two great characters. You got Jon and Tyrion's a scene stealer constantly. But I think this scene is like the most indicative of what I love about Game of Thrones, and that is two people talking. Each episode from here on out has at least one scene where like two people are just talking, and it's the most riveting TV ever. And even though this is very short and it's not the greatest example of that, I think this is the one that shows like, hey, this is what I love about Game of Thrones, is these really well written characters, and Tyrion just kind of like trying to help him out in his own way, and it's just beautiful. I love it.
My number one is the cap of this episode, "The Things I Do for Love," tossing Bran out the window. Because the "who has done this" is the center of the plot, but the pushing of Bran out the window is the thing that really sets off
the powder keg.
Yeah, sets the kingdom aflame. And I love Jaime Lannister, even though he's difficult to love, and Cersei is the villain that everybody loves to hate. And I think that if you've never seen the show before, you will never guess where things end up going, especially with these people as people. And it's just fun to see that again. And the start of it all, "The Things I Do for Love." But so many great moments, even in this first episode. Let's get to our dragon eggs. Maybe some things, extra context you might need, or things from the book. I don't know how much context to provide, because
it's hard.
People will organically learn things as the show goes on, even though it is backstory. It might be something that is fun later, but it's important to know how this world works, I guess. The Seven Kingdoms are one kingdom, but they used to be seven. 300 years ago, they were conquered by a Targaryen by the name of Aegon, who at that time had dragons, which were unable to be fought against by anybody in Westeros, because he came from lands out east, a place called Valyria. And the dragons have since died out and don't exist anymore. And the Seven Kingdoms are just one kingdom ruled by the Targaryens, all the way up until 15 years ago, when Robert usurped the throne from Aerys II, I believe, Targaryen.
The Mad King.
Yeah, he was a little cray-cray, and his son Viserys would have inherited because his son Rhaegar was killed by Robert.
By Robert, yeah.
On the Trident.
Rhaegar is rumored to be the one who kidnapped Lyanna Stark, and that's why he's like, I dream of killing him every night, and he blames her death on him.
They think she was raped and murdered by Rhaegar Targaryen. That's the reason the whole war started. But also, Aerys, the king, definitely killed Brandon Stark, Eddard's older brother, and his father in front of the whole court in a very brutal way that will be revealed later. But that definitely happened as well, which is why Eddard was pissed. By the way, Brandon was supposed to marry Catelyn Tully, his wife. So he took Brandon's spot as heir to Winterfell, but also, as custom decreed, took his wife. Like, he was automatically just next betrothed to Catelyn. So Eddard feels awkward. Like, he took his brother's wife, his brother's seat at Winterfell. He wasn't raised to do any of this.
Been a knight.
Yeah, he was just supposed to hang out.
He would have been a Waymar Royce.
Live his own life.
Waymer.
Weimer.
So that's kind of the context of where we're at in this story, I guess. I wanted to be, I can provide more as well, but I don't want to on certain things.
Do it.
Do it.
Do it, you naughty boy.
Yeah, what else?
Well, we mentioned that this is the pilot of Game of Thrones, but infamously, there was actually a completely different pilot episode that they shot before this. It was the original pilot was directed by Thomas McCarthy, and only I think they reshot 90% of what he originally did because they made the pilot. The Double D's, they showed their friend Craig Mazin a screening of it, and they were thinking like, oh, he's gonna give us back like all of his notes, and apparently he just responded with massive problem in all caps. We'll talk soon. And so there's a bunch of different stuff.
Craig Mazin of Chernobyl fame.
Yes.
And later of Last of Us fame.
Yes.
Hangover Part 3 fame.
Hangover. At this point in time, it was Hangover Part 3 fame.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah. But apparently, like a lot of the things that they changed when they did they recast a bunch of people. And you can find a list of who they are. All are. It's very hard to find even screen grabs of this first episode.
Are there even screen grabs?
Yeah, there are very few, but you can find them. Actually, you can find a screen grab of the original Ilario, who is much closer to, like, he doesn't have the gold beard, but it's a forked beard, and he's got like a weird headdress. So like you can find some screen grabs of the original pilot, but you can't find it anywhere at all. But it would have shown, Ned's dad and brother being killed by the Mad King. Like it had a bunch of other scenes added to it. The big thing that they changed with what we have now in the current version of the pilot episode is that they made great pains to really define the familial relationships between people. Because apparently when people screened the first episode, a lot of them like didn't understand that the Lannisters were siblings. Like they didn't know that Tyrion was the brother of Cersei and Jaime, and that Jaime and Cersei were brothers and sisters. So when the incest happened, people were like, okay, whatever.
What's the big deal?
They literally rewrote it to where Jamie's first line is "as your brother."
Yes, that's an example of one of the scenes they added in, and that's why they had the ADR of Arya going, "That's the imp, the queen's brother," like that type of shit.
John Aaron died on screen. Did you say that?
I did not, but yes, that is one of the examples. Do you have it up, like the differences?
I pulled up some lists, yeah.
Yeah, you can go ahead and read them off if you want.
George Martin had a cameo.
Mm-hmm. He was a Petoshi merchant or something.
There was a sparring scene between Bran and Tommen. Tommen is the littlest Lannister kid. That's interesting.
Oh, yeah, we haven't seen Tommen yet.
No.
The marriage between Ned and Catelyn was much frostier, which is interesting.
So she went to Wendy's on the way there?
Yes. The Hound's wounds were even nastier, so there was more book accurate there. I guess they decided to change that. It's kind of freaking people out, man.
Well, that and like the time to put it all together.
The credit scene was different. Change that.
Yeah.
Also, we like get the opening sequence in the pilot. You usually don't get that on pilots.
Oh, right. Yeah, the
yeah, that's true. That's true.
The White Walkers originally appeared in the opening scene the way that they were in the book. It was incredibly boring, reportedly.
Well, that's a good that's probably a big part of why it's a massive problem.
Oh, I didn't even realize, Tyrion doesn't have blonde hair like he's supposed to because Peter Dinklage looked weird with blonde hair. And that was one of the things they wanted, like, just take that away.
He's a little blonde. He's more blonde in this episode than
though.
like he ever is the rest of the show.
I had no idea Catelyn and Daenerys were recast.
I knew about Daenerys. I didn't know about Catelyn.
Yeah.
Dude, the original Daenerys, wow. That looks so weird not being Emilia Clarke.
Yeah, I think Emilia Clarke is a better Daenerys.
Tamsin Merchant originally played Daenerys. She was on The Tudors in Salem. Interesting.
I'd have to look her up.
Interesting. Oh, there was also a flashback with the Mad King. You mentioned that. Yeah.
One another little bit of an dragon egg that I want to throw out that is tangentially related to the recasting is Weimer Royce. He was the original actor who played him in the pilot. The original pilot was recast to who we got. Do you want to know who the original Weimer Royce was?
Please.
It is a Streaming Things favorite.
Matthew Modine.
Close. Jamie Campbell Bower.
Who played in season 4?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Wow.
Yes. We already have Joseph Quinn eventually in Game of Thrones, so that would have been funny. Interesting. I don't know why they recast him. He's fine. A big barrel of fine.
Well, I guess they had to reshoot it, and I guess maybe he wasn't available.
Yeah.
Maybe. That's the only thing
That
I can think
sucks.
of.
I'm busy.
If you guys notice when they announced Viserys, he is Viserys, the third of his name. The first of his name would be Viserys that we see in House of the Dragon, season 1, played by Paddy Considine.
Yeah.
That great character, his legacy name fell upon this guy.
We'll be fucking interested because House of the Dragon is incredible.
It is. Yeah, it is.
Any other dragon eggs we want to point out, fellas?
Talking about, I said earlier that this show does a lot of like bookending with scenes. It also kind of does really great foreshadowing for Ned. That so much is laid out very like gently in the very beginning of the show. It's amazing.
And some of the symbolism of animals and stuff is remarked upon. That whole scene is way different in the book and a little more.
Are you talking about the puppy scene?
Yeah, when they find the puppies and stuff in the book, it's like somebody goes off trail, and it's because Rob
There's a dog here.
Yeah, Rob and Theon are kids, and they race their horses and go off, and that's how they find it. Where in the show, it's like there's a fucking deer in the road.
Let's go look at it.
Oh, there's a wolf with puppies.
Fetch me a stick. I wish to poke it.
And I read that was a real deer. Like, I guess they found it and it had been dead for like 2 days.
We could use this.
And it was like super stinky because it had just been sitting there rotting.
I bet. Yeah, it looks gross.
Oh,
that's wild.
I guess those flies and maggots were real. Was that a real wolf?
I don't know. I just know that about the
We found a real dire wolf.
A dragon egg, you can... I gathered the names of all the puppies for all the kids, so if we reference them in later episodes, you guys will know who we're talking about. Rob's puppy, he names Grey Wind. Sansa names hers Lady. Arya names her Nymeria, which is named after a famous pilot of ships, explorer.
Conqueror, and yeah.
Yeah, she's badass. Nymearia's a badass. Jon names his Ghost, because it's all white. Bran names his Summer, and Rickon, the 3-year-old, just names his Shaggy Dog, which I think is fucking adorable.
Yeah. Shaggy Dog.
Shaggy Dog. We do see, you mentioned
Steve
this.
named his Pippin.
Hello, Pippin the dog, the dire wolf here. The Silent Sisters, you mentioned them earlier. They are a religious order of women for the faith of the seven, like you mentioned. Specifically, they honor death. They're in charge of, getting... people, the funeral services basically
Funeral
is what
rites.
they're doing.
Yeah, funereal rites.
But the seven in the faith of the seven is the father, who kind of oversees justice, the mother, who represents peace and fertility, the maiden, purity and love, the crone, who represents wisdom, the warrior, representing strength, the smith, creation, and lastly, the stranger.
The stranger.
Who is death.
And also when you sit on your hand.
Let it go numb. They call it a stranger. We get a mention of the Shadowlands beyond Ashai.
Yeah, a Far East land.
Yeah, where apparently a lot of like dark magic happens and stuff.
Maybe.
Very mysterious.
Apparently there's a lot of dark magic.
That's what the guidebook is telling me.
Any other dragon eggs?
Yeah, I mean, we kind of briefly. I wrote this down. I don't know how much this adds, but like the horse that Drogo gives Daenerys is the silver.
Yeah,
it's
that's her silver.
It's gray like the winter sea and a mane like silver smoke, and it becomes a pseudo icon of Dany's in the books. It's not as important in the show, but
it's a beautiful horse.
It often tells us the meaning of haste.
I was literally sitting there like Shadowfax joke.
Show us the meaning of haste. All right, it's time for the Mummer's Dragon, our favorite performance of the episode. Andy, I think I know who you're going with, but just lay it upon me.
Of course, I'm going to go with Tyrion. And he's going to be, you're going to see a theme. It's going to be just about every episode where it's going to be him because he steals every scene that he's in every time. We get introduced to him in the best way where he's having a good old time. And it's
getting a beach.
It's a close up of him like drinking like some ale and then making a funny face. And then, they reveal him. But even just that sequence, the introduction of sex position in this world, we learn a lot about like his wit, his family, how he views his family, and how like he thinks that the world sees him and I thought that was wonderful. We got the great sequences with him and Jon, and then him and the Hound. He didn't have a lot to do in this episode, but again, those scenes that he's in, he just glows on screen. Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah, this is one of those shows where I feel like episode by episode, we're all going to have a really hard time choosing between who it is that we pick, because all of these actors are
either Jamie or Tyrion.
I think
Which one?
All these actors are so fucking great. Yeah. Like, they're so iconic, and you're not going to find really a bad actor in the show, really, of any consequence, really, of any import at least. But for this episode, I don't know who I want to give it to. I think I'm going to give it to Mark Addy.
I knew it.
I thought you would.
As Bobby B, just because, he has that grand entrance. He's just a fun character. But then when you go into the crypt, he's really this vulnerable, like heartbroken man. There's a scene coming up, I think, in like episode 4 with him and Cersei. That's one of my favorite scenes in Game of Thrones. I can't wait to talk about that one. But I want to give it to Mark Addy because I just find his performance fun, and there's depth to it.
I'm going to throw another curveball. I'm going to give it to Emilia Clarke for Daenerys.
Yeah, I almost give it to her too.
Daenerys is my favorite character. That's my queen.
Mm-hmm.
And I think she does an excellent job of playing this like scared fish out of water, but a person of immense strength that you maybe can't see yet, but she contains multitudes. And even seeing where she's going later, I think she does a good job of carrying herself with poise amidst all of the confusion. I mean, she's at this crazy Burning Man death orgy, and her brother is this abusive nut, and she's been homeless and chased by assassins her entire life, and yada yada yada. You can go on. And
she loves her bathwater hot.
And she likes a hot bath, but she's still so caring and sweet and curious. And there's so much good about it. I just think it's if I was just going to try to highlight a different performance, I could have easily went with Nikolai Coster-Waldau too, though. But there'll be plenty of time to nominate all of these people.
Everyone in this episode, you could probably throw it their way at some point or another in the show. That's how good. That's the pedigree of the show.
Give me the dog. Give it down, Alan.
Give it down. I'll kill it.
I love it. But yeah, that wraps up our coverage of season 1, episode 1. Again, if you'd like to hear more of this type of shit, man, talking about Game of Thrones, go to patreon.com/streamingthings. If you subscribe at least $5 tier, you'll get all of our bonus content. And we hope that you do, because we really want to keep doing this.
And starting on June 1st, our Patreon tiers change, which means if you do join up at the $5 tier, at least you can get all Streaming Things episodes ad free as well.
That's right, baby.
Something to mention. And a real big exciting thing that we can announce on this episode. Kit, are you excited for this?
I don't know what it is.
The live show, Streaming Things Live on October 5th. We've already told you the date, but I'm happy to announce that the tickets will be going on sale in June. So if you are a member of the Patreon at the $25 tier and above, you will have first access to the tickets on June 1st. On June 3rd, the rest of Patreon will have access to the tickets, and then tickets will go public to everybody on June 8th.
If there's any left.
If there's any left, yes. So seriously, like, get them while they're hot. There's been a lot of people are excited about going. But yeah, tickets are going on sale. June 1st, if you're at the $25 tier and above. June 3rd, everyone else on Patreon. And then June 8th for everybody publicly.
Yeah, be sure to check the Patreon if you're listening to this in June. Check the new tier structure. We think we've added a lot of value to each level. And if you can't afford to support the show, we totally understand. The times are tight. We thank you for listening at all. We hope you enjoyed this coverage. That's all the time we have for right now. We've got to go return some videotapes. My name is Kit.
I'm Andy. And I'm Steve.
And this was Streaming Things, streaming Game of Thrones. Happy streaming.